Before I, 39 male, met my ex-girlfriend, 35 female. I was married for almost 10 years. My ex-wife and I started off great, but toward the end of our relationship, we just couldn't get along. We didn't have any children or anything tying us together, so we mutually agreed that it would be best to call it. One of the things that drew me to my ex-girlfriend when we met was how we had similar experiences with our partners. She was cheated on by her ex-husband and baby daddy, so she left him. We bonded over our shared experiences, and given both of our pasts, I figured we would put a lot of effort into having a great relationship. I met her daughter, and we were an unofficial family for the 3 years that we were together. I wanted to marry her and formally adopt her daughter, so she would have my last name. Because of the custody arrangements she had with her ex, he was very much in the picture. She would argue with him all the time about pickup and drop-off times. She would complain to me about how he was buying her a ton of fast food and spoiling her when they were together. We both thought it was some ploy to get her daughter to spend more time with him. I was used to her texting him all the time. They would have phone calls and video chats from time to time as well. As far as I was aware, everything they discussed was about child care. She would never go to other places to make the calls. She would tell me about everything that happened with him anyway, so there wasn't much of a point to it. I thought we had a pretty open relationship in that respect. One day, I noticed that she was stepping outside a lot to make the calls. My suspicions weren't raised immediately, but I did think it was weird. I would ask her about what he had to say when she came in, and she told me that he was giving her a hard time about dates and things like that. She was very vague with a lot of her answers. With their custody arrangements, they would alternate weekends that they would spend with their kid. So, every other weekend, I would surprise my girlfriend with a fun date night or something like that. I knew that she wasn't happy with the custody arrangement, so anything I could do to help her was good in my eyes. One weekend, I made plans to take her to a museum, then we would grab lunch and catch a movie after. I told her that we had plans, but I didn't tell her exactly what we were doing. I had already bought the tickets for everything because I just assumed everything would be fine. She went to drop her daughter off at her ex's house, and I waited around for her to show up back home. Time kept going, and she didn't show up. She knew that we had plans, and it was unlike her not to be on time for something. My mind went to the worst-case scenario, and I immediately started calling her to make sure she was okay. She didn't answer the phone, and I was a little panicked. All I could do was wait to hear something back from her. About an hour after I had reached out, I got a response from her saying that she was going to be spending the day with her daughter and ex. I was really confused about that because I knew she couldn't stand her ex. Plus, it was his custody weekend, and unless he invited her somewhere, she had no right to be lingering around. I didn't want to push it and ask a lot of questions, so I just told her that I was worried, and I casually asked what they were up to. She didn't respond to me until the end of the day. She told me that they went to a water park together since one just opened up near her ex. When she got home later that night, I asked her about her day to see how everything was. She told me that they all had a fun time, and she was glad that her daughter was able to spend time with both of her parents. She told me that it all felt normal again. Normal for her changed when he cheated on her, and she divorced him. I was getting a sense that she missed what they had as a family. I could understand that, but I was a little bit nervous. I loved my girlfriend, and I didn't want to lose her. She apologized for missing my plans and promised to make it up to me. When she said that, I thought she was being a little cheeky about making it up to me, and when I made a move on her, she turned me down. Our sex life wasn't the greatest on the planet before all of this, but after the weekend she spent with her ex, it was non-existent. For weeks, every time I would try to kiss her for more than a couple of seconds or do anything intimate with her, she would come up with an excuse to get away from me. At the same time, she was spending more time with her ex. It felt wrong to complain about it because she was framing it in a way that she was doing it for her daughter, but after a while, I started to suspect that there was more to it. She came home late one night from dropping her daughter off at her ex's house, and I noticed a mark on her shoulder. She was clearly trying to cover it up with her shirt. It could have been something from a curling iron or a bug bite, but I was already suspicious and the placement was adding to that. Later that night, I looked through her phone when she was asleep. I needed to know if there was something going on with her and her ex. Of course, my suspicions were immediately confirmed by their text messages. They were sending things like, "I can't wait to see you this weekend. I miss you so much. I want you back," etc. I looked through their messages, and saw that he apologized for cheating on her and subtly blamed her for the cheating. Instead of fighting back like she normally would have, she accepted what he had to say and took some of the blame. I thought it was kind of pathetic for her to do that. The weekend that he told her he was going to the water park, he invited her to his house for a discussion. According to the text messages after that, they slept together that night. From there, everything escalated and they started seeing each other again. I was heartbroken and angry that she would lie to me and cheat on me like that. The thing about it is, if she wanted to try to rekindle something with him to have her family back together for her daughter's sake, I would have understood. I wouldn't have been happy with it, but if she had come to me from the beginning, I would have accepted it. But instead, she lied to my face and made me look like a fool. I wanted to get back at her in some way. I had been good to her, and she completely betrayed my trust. I needed to show her that I wasn't someone who would be toyed around with like that. I played it cool and didn't say anything to her over the weekend. In fact, I tried to avoid her. After her daughter was back from her dad's house, I decided I was going to pay him a visit. I didn't know what I had planned when I got there. All I knew was that I was angry, and I needed to take it out on something. When I pulled up to his house, I noticed that there was an unfamiliar car in the driveway. It didn't belong to him, and it wasn't my wife's. I didn't know who else he spent time with, but given his history, I couldn't help but wonder if it was another woman. I thought it would be really rich for my girlfriend to throw away everything we had to give this man a second chance only for him to continue cheating on her. I kind of hoped that would be the case actually. I looked inside the car before I walked to the door and I saw that there was a fuzzy pink steering wheel cover and made an assumption that it was a woman's car. I walked over to the windows and peeked inside to see him very cozy with another woman. They were in his living room watching a movie. She was sitting on his lap with her arms around his neck and they were kissing. I took a couple of pictures and drove away. I knew exactly what I was going to do to get back at my girlfriend then. I got home and waited for her daughter to fall asleep, so she wouldn't have to hear anything I had to say. My girlfriend sat down next to me on the couch, and I calmly told her that I expected her to be out of my house by the end of the week, and I didn't want anything to do with her. She tried to play dumb like she didn't know what was going on, but I told her that I knew about everything. She made it out like I was the bad guy for going through her phone. At the end of our conversation, she told me that she never loved me anyway. She reminded me that her ex was the love of her life, and they were going to get back together because he changed. That's when I pulled out the photos I'd taken of him with the other woman. She was shocked to see them. I told her that it didn't look like he changed as much as she thought. She was clearly angry about the pictures, and she stormed out of the living room. I heard her yelling on the phone shortly after. She came to me a couple of days before she was supposed to be out and apologized, begging me to change my mind and let her stay. Apparently, she wasn't able to work things out with her ex. I told her that wasn't an option for me, and she only had a few more days to leave. She tried to tell me that she had nowhere else to go, and that she couldn't afford to be out on her own, but I just told her that wasn't my problem. She didn't have a job. She survived on spousal support from her ex, and if they couldn't work things out, I doubted she was welcome at his house. By the end of the week, all of her things were packed and she was on her way out. She was going to her grandmother's house a couple of states away. I can only imagine that a major custody battle took place after she left the state. That's typically not something a parent with a custody agreement is allowed to do without notice. Frankly, I don't really care. She's out of my life, and all I want to do is move on from this nightmare. OP, I'm so sorry you had to go through something like this. It really seems like you loved your girlfriend and her daughter, and it's such a shame that you had to lose both of them in this. It sounds like your girlfriend had legitimate reasons for leaving her ex to begin with, so it's hard to understand why she would be so quick to go back to him. Someone in her position will do anything in their power to try to shift the blame onto someone else, so of course she would treat you like a villain for looking at her phone. Cheaters will do anything not be held responsible for their actions. I think it is funny how her ex still had another woman he was seeing and lying to her again. She clearly fell for whatever it was he was telling her and was ready to throw away her life for another chance with a man who treated her like garbage. Hopefully, after all of this, she'll at least open her eyes to the people around her so she can see what their true intentions are, good and bad. I agree, there is no doubt in my mind they are going through quite a custody battle after she left the state. I wouldn't even be surprised if the ex was awarded custody after she left on top of everything else. I really hope you're able to move past this in time and can find a partner who doesn't lie to you that you can be happy with. Now let's move on to our next story. My 33 male wife, 30 female, and I have been together for 6 years. When I met her, I knew right away that I wanted to be with her forever. She was everything I ever thought I wanted in a woman and more. It actually took a little bit of convincing to get her to go out with me to begin with. She was new at the office we worked in, and she didn't want to get in trouble by dating another employee. But I could tell that she liked me by how she looked at me. We eventually had our first date, and it was incredible. It sparked the beginning of a whirlwind romance, and we got married about a year and a half after meeting. One of my favorite things about her was her desire to always be learning. Whether it was a new skill or a language, she was always trying to expand her horizons. She was a very worldly person. She loved to travel, and she loved learning things about different cultures. I wasn't any of that, but I aspired to be, so I admired her for it. We did some traveling together when we first got married. We visited Singapore and Thailand together, which was incredible. When the pandemic happened, obviously, we weren't able to travel at all. Not being able to travel and explore the world really took a toll on my wife. It truly was her greatest passion, and having her confined within a house for months was a nightmare for her. One of the things that she did to escape from that was to join this online club that would meet once or twice a month. People would just chat over a Zoom call about places they visited and their cultures. One of her favorite aspects of it was a recipe sharing section where everybody shared different foods from their respective cultures. She loved her group. She actually became pretty good friends with a lot of the members. They would chat with each other away from the group meetings and play games online or watch movies together through Discord. I was happy that she was able to find a way to survive those early days of the pandemic. When everything was clear, vaccines were coming out, and it was finally safe to travel, she jumped the first opportunity she had. Unfortunately, I was back working in the office, so my schedule wasn't permitting anything like that. She was actually laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was supporting us both, so if she wanted to travel, she would have been able to. We had a long conversation about it because she felt bad going without me, but she told me how trapped she felt after everything that happened. I wasn't happy with her going without me. I felt left out, but I knew that she needed that freedom, so I agreed to let her go. She left for a week and came back happier than I'd seen her in a long time. She had gone to Germany to visit one of the friends she made in her online group. She showed me a ton of pictures of them together, the things she'd seen and the food she had eaten. I thought it was enough to satiate her desire to travel until we could do it together, but I was wrong. It only seemed to open a window for her to want to do more. I still couldn't take off and ignore my responsibilities to go with her. I explained how her traveling alone made me feel, and she agreed that she would wait until I could take some time off before she went anywhere else. A couple of months after we had that conversation, she told me that one of her friends from the online group she was in had been begging her to come for her wedding. At first, I thought that I would have had enough time to request off of work and go with her. When she told me the dates, I was disappointed because I knew I wasn't able to go. I had a big work conference that was mandatory that I attended. I reminded her of that, and she told me she had forgotten all about it. I didn't realize this at the time, but she was lying about that then. I didn't have any reason to suspect that something was going on, so she seemed genuine when she told me that she forgot and wouldn't go if I couldn't go with her. She knew that I would tell her to just go without me. The weeks leading up to her departure were a little strange. I could tell that there was something wrong with her, but I didn't know what at the time. She was acting very nervous around me. She couldn't meet me in the eyes a lot of the time, and it always seemed like there was something on the tip of her tongue that she wanted to say. We both left on the same day for our flights. I was so busy that I didn't even think to check in on her when her flight should have landed. When I got back to my hotel room at the end of the day, I checked my messages to see if she sent me anything, but she didn't. Before I started to worry, I logged into the airline's website to check her arrival time. Because I traveled for work a lot, and she liked to travel in general, we had a joint account, so we could crew miles. I saw that there was a new flight logged in our history. She landed where she told me she was originally going to, but there was a departure to Paris, France an hour after the other flight arrived. She never mentioned anything about going to Paris while she was there. I screenshotted the information and I texted it to her to make sure that it was her that bought it. It wasn't impossible that somebody could have hacked our account and bought their own plane ticket. She didn't respond to me right away, but I got a message about 15 minutes after the Paris flight was scheduled to arrive. That pretty much confirmed to me that she was in Paris. I just didn't understand what she would be doing there. She called me from the airport, and told me that she had a little extra time and she wanted to visit the city before the wedding. I was honestly a little too tired to argue with her, so I accepted it and figured we would talk about that later on. It was a little bit frustrating for me because airline tickets aren't cheap, especially not when somebody is buying business class and first class tickets everywhere they go. As I said, she lost her job at the beginning of the pandemic. I had an incredible job and supporting both of us wasn't an issue at all, but when she was making purchases like that, it would be nice to be aware of them. I went to sleep and didn't even think about it until I woke up in the morning. When I looked at my phone, I saw that I had a text message from an unknown number. It wasn't immediately alarming because I have a lot of spam text messages that come through on a daily basis. When I opened it to see what it was, I saw a picture of my wife's standing in front of a mirror, naked with a man standing behind her taking a picture. There was no context given to the photo at all. Immediately I replied and I asked who the person was, and they read the message. They just didn't reply. The conference I was attending was hugely important for my work, so I tried as best as I could to push what I saw to the back of my mind just to get through the day. I didn't look at my phone because I couldn't stomach the idea of my wife texting me that she loved me after what I saw. When I was finally finished with the day, I noticed that the number that texted me tried to call me twice. I got back to my hotel room and I called back. Surprisingly, a man answered the phone. I asked him who he was and why he sent me the picture that he did. He told me that he just wanted me to know that I was barking up the wrong tree by talking to my wife. I was very confused about what he was saying. I was married to the woman. If anybody was barking up the wrong tree, it was him. While we were on the phone, I noticed that he had a thick French accent. It was clear that she booked the ticket to France to be with that guy in the picture. Out of curiosity, I checked the airline website again to see if she had booked another ticket back to the city she was originally supposed to be in, but she didn't. The only ticket that was remaining was her return flight home. Without thinking much about what I was doing, I removed my payment information from the website and I canceled her flight. I didn't know exactly what was going on there, but I knew she cheated on me. The details about what she told that guy weren't really any of my concern. She lied to me about why she needed to go abroad so she could sneak off with the other man. I doubted there was even a wedding she was supposed to attend. I finished up the conference and went home right away. If she was going to cheat on me, I was going to take everything from her. She could be stranded in Paris for the rest of her life, and I wouldn't care. When the time came for her to come home, she called and texted me and asked me about why I canceled her flight. She had no idea her little boyfriend told me about what was happening. I ended up answering the phone and explaining to her that I knew everything, and she wasn't going to be returning to the States on my dime. She would have to figure out her own way home. She tried to explain the picture by saying that I misunderstood because that was an old photo of an ex. I knew for a fact it wasn't. She was lying to me yet again. I told her that she had one chance to tell me the truth, and that was it. She caved in and told me what was really happening. Of course, the man she met in Paris was one of the people from her online group. They had both gotten to talking and he seduced her. He was in a band and he was artsy, things that she would normally go for in a man before she met me. I didn't say anything about it, and I told her that when she got home, she could expect to find divorce papers waiting for her. Then I hung up. I didn't buy her plane ticket back. She actually ended up having to call several people to try and get them to buy her a ticket because she didn't have any of her own money. I had completely cut her off after I found out she cheated. Her sister ended up buying her the ticket, then called me to ream me out over the phone about stranding her. I did some digging online to try to find out who the guy was that my wife was sleeping with. She mentioned that he had a band, but when I found him, I was surprised by how many followers he had. He was a growing artist and had recently released a song that was doing pretty well. I knew it was wrong when I did it, but I couldn't help myself. I blurred out my wife's face so she couldn't sue me for revenge. Then I posted the picture of the man online with a throwaway account tagging him in it. It got a lot of views, and the story that I posted along with it about how he slept with a married woman and ruined someone's life got a lot of sympathy from people. I divorced my wife, and she ended up moving out with her sister while she looked for a job that could sustain her. She ended up working in person again, which I knew would disrupt her traveling desires. I thought that was funny. A couple of months after I posted the picture online, I checked on the status of the band out of curiosity. They had gotten quite a mixed reception over the image. One of the band members spoke out on their Instagram page about how after everything happens, it was decided that it would be best for the band to part ways and pursue different paths, so it felt kind of good knowing that their band might have broken up because of me. OP. It's clear your wife made up the entire story about the wedding to have an excuse to go abroad without you. She probably even scheduled the date during your conference because she knew you wouldn't be able to go along. It seems like she took advantage of your kindness by not only spending your money to go and have that affair, but also knowing that you would be okay with not going if it made her happy. I would be interested in knowing what she told the other man that encouraged him to send that picture. Did he think that they were in some kind of exclusive relationship? Did he think that you were some scorned lover who was texting her all the time? It's very strange that someone who was just sleeping with a woman would send a message like that. I think it's funny how angry your sister-in-law was about you stranding your wife in France. I think it was the least that she deserved after flying there just to cheat on you. I hope that the man's band broke up because of the picture that you posted. If they got a lot of negative feedback from it, I wouldn't blame the band members for trying to distance themselves from him. I know what you went through was a lot, but I hope you're able to move on in the future and find somebody else who will value what you put into a relationship. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact. The moment I laid eyes on Leo, standing there with that all too familiar grin, it was like a punch to the gut, a good one, if that makes sense. My life with Michael, a man whose idea of a wild night was reviewing legal briefs, flashed before my eyes, dull and monochrome against the vibrant shades of my past with Leo. Anna. Leo's voice pulled me back from the edge of the rabbit hole I was about to tumble down. Yeah, it's me, I managed, my voice a mix of shock and a thrill I hadn't felt in years. Our coffee shop rendezvous, supposed to be a quick catch-up between old college friends, spiraled into something neither of us had planned. Leo's laughter filled the spaces in my heart that I didn't know were empty. By the time we said goodbye, the seed of something forbidden was already planted. Sneaking around with Leo felt like being on a high-speed chase, thrilling but terrifying. Each secret meeting, each stolen kiss, was a rebellion against the mundane existence I'd resigned myself to. But with every lie I told Michael, the weight of my guilt grew heavier. Michael's suspicions didn't take long to surface. His cold, lawyerly demeanor turned icy, his questions sharper, more probing. I brushed them off, feigned innocence, but the unease gnawing at me grew with each passing day. The day I found the hidden camera in my car was the day my carefully constructed world started to crumble. Panic seized me, a cold hand gripping my heart. Michael knew how much, I wasn't sure, but the game was up. The confrontation was inevitable. Michael, with his damning evidence, faced me across our marble kitchen island, a battlefield for our crumbling marriage. The hurt in his eyes was something I hadn't expected, overshadowed by the anger I'd braced for. Why, Anna? His voice was a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. I had rehearsed 1,000 apologies, 1,000 explanations, but faced with his pain, they all seemed feeble, inadequate. Yet, in that moment of total despair, my resolve hardened. Leo had reignited a part of me I thought was dead. I wouldn't, snuff it out again, not even for Michael. I'm sorry, Michael, I can't do this anymore. My voice was steady, the words feeling more like a declaration of freedom than an apology. Leaving Michael for Leo was like jumping out of a plane without a parachute, exhilarating and terrifying all at once. I chose Leo, chose the uncertainty and passion he offered over the cold, predictable life with Michael. But as I stood on the threshold of my new beginning, the weight of my choices bore down on me. The thrill of the affair had blinded me to the consequences, and now, faced with the reality of what I'd done, the seeds of regret began to take root. Yet, there was no turning back. I had made my choice, and now I had to live with it. I never pictured myself as the other woman, you know? The kind you see in those trashy TV dramas, clutching at straws, trying to stitch a life together from her own wreck. But here I am, sitting in what used to be our bedroom, now just a box of memories I'm not allowed to touch. Let's just say, life with Leo was a crash course in reality. His charm, that same allure that pulled me away from my marriage, evaporated quicker than a puddle in the desert. The first month was a haze of what I thought was bliss, but as the weeks rolled on, Leo's true colors bled through. The man was about as reliable as a paper umbrella. His promises of a better life, a more passionate existence, were just mirages. I found myself missing Michael's steady, if distant, presence. But what's done was done, right? Money, or the lack thereof, turned out to be a cruel teacher. Without Michael's income, our finances went into a tailspin. I'd lie awake, listening to Leo's snores, wondering how we ended up here. Then came the day I found those damning receipts. Leo wasn't just bad with money, he was hemorrhaging it through every slot machine and poker table in town. Desperate, I reached out to Sarah, my only friend who hadn't picked sides. Michael's a wreck, but he's moving on, she said. Those words, they hit harder than I thought. Part of me wanted to rejoice, but the larger part, the part that still wore his ring on a chain around my neck, a little more. So, I swallowed my pride, which tasted a lot like defeat, and went back to Michael. I made a mistake, I told him, standing at our front door, feeling like a stranger. But the man who looked back at me wasn't the Michael the first left. This version was colder, his eyes holding a glint of something I couldn't place. I'll take you back, he finally said. But things will be different. Different was an understatement. Michael's conditions were clear. My life would be an open book for him to read whenever he pleased. No more secrets, no more lies. I agreed, not realizing I was trading one prison for another. And so began my life in a gilded cage. Michael installed cameras, monitored my calls, approved my outings. My freedom, the very thing I thought I was choosing with Leo, was a mirage. And every time I looked in the mirror, I saw her, the woman who chose passion over stability and ended up with nothing. As I sit here, recounting the steps that led me to this moment, I can't help but wonder if there was ever a right choice. Leo's betrayal cut deep, but Michael's revenge? It's a slow poison, one that's killing me softly. I'm left wondering who the real prisoner is in this twisted love story of ours. The moment I found out about Michael's real plan, my world stopped spinning. It was like one of those thriller movies where the protagonist realizes they're not the hunter, but the prey. And let me tell you, feeling like a pawn in someone else's game of chess? It sucks. I was rifling through Michael's study. Yeah, I know, not my proudest moment. When I stumbled upon a stack of documents, bank statements, loans, and debts, all leading back to one name. Leo. My heart sank as the pieces clicked together. Michael wasn't just trying to punish me, he was using me to destroy Leo. Before I could process it all, Leo himself came crashing back into my life with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. Anna, we need to talk, he pleaded over the phone, desperation lacing his voice. But before I could even consider it, Michael was there, his shadow looming over me. The confrontation was inevitable. Leo, fueled by a mix of desperation and hope, showed up at our door, ready to fight for us. But Michael, always 2 steps ahead, was ready. The air crackled with tension as they faced off, words sharp as knives. I stood there, a silent witness to the madness I'd helped create. Michael's grip on Leo tightened with every passing day, his manipulation reaching new heights. He was playing a dangerous game, using Leo's debts as leverage to keep him under control. And me? I was the bait, the dangling carrot to keep Leo in line. I couldn't let it happen. Not like this. I had to warn Leo, to tell him the truth about Michael's vendetta. But every attempt was thwarted by Michael's omnipresent surveillance. My every move, every word, was monitored, leaving me trapped in a web of deceit. That's when the mysterious ally from my past stepped in. Call him fate, karma, or just dumb luck. But when I saw his message, a flicker of hope ignited within me. He knew things that could turn the tide in our favor. There's a way out, he promised. But it'll take everything you've got. We started plotting, working in the shadows to outmaneuver Michael. It was a game of cat and mouse, a battle of wits and wills. I was all in, ready to do whatever it took to escape the nightmare my life had become. But Michael, ever the strategist, was ahead of us. Did you really think you could outsmart me, Anna? He asked one evening, his voice calm, his eyes cold. He knew about my ally, had probably known from the start. My heart sank as I realized the depth of his control. He wasn't just a step ahead, he was writing the playbook. The moment I thought I had everything figured out, my world imploded. It was like standing on a rug, so plush you never thought it'd be yanked from under you. But yanked it was, and down I went. My plan, the one that was supposed to be my grand escape with Leo, crumbled into nothing right before my eyes. It wasn't just a failure, it was a spectacle. Leo, my beacon of hope in a sea of regret, was taken away in handcuffs, his eyes wide with confusion and betrayal. He looked at me, and in that glance, I saw the collapse of all our dreams. It was supposed to be us against the world, but there I stood, alone, as he was whisked away by the police for debts he never even knew had been called in. That's when the truth hit me like a freight train. My so-called ally, the one person I thought was on my side, was nothing more than a pawn in Michael's elaborate game. The realization was cold and sharp. I thought you were helping me. I confronted them, the hurt evident in my voice. Their response was a shrug, devoid of any remorse. Michael's plan was always going to win, Anna. I just made sure I was on the winning side. Betrayal never comes from enemies. It's the knife in your back, wielded by a hand you once held. That's what hurt the most. Not just the betrayal itself, but who it came from. In the aftermath, I dug deeper, desperate to understand why Michael would go to such lengths. What I found was a Pandora's box of secrets and lies, a hidden chapter of Michael's life that explained his insatiable need for control and revenge. It wasn't just about us. It was about a wound so deep, so festering, that it had turned love into a game of chess. The weight of my decisions bore down on me, a relentless force that pushed me into a corner of despair. With Leo behind bars and no ally in sight, the enormity of my mistake was undeniable. I had underestimated Michael, and now I was paying the price. I needed closure, or at least an understanding of why. Why go through all this? Why turn love into a battlefield? So, I confronted Michael, my voice barely a whisper. Why? His answer was a glimpse into a mind twisted by past hurts and betrayal. To teach you a lesson about loyalty, Anna, about the consequences of your actions. His justification was as cold as ice, a testament to the chasm between us. There was no love here, only lessons in cruelty. That confrontation was my moment of realization. The full extent of my actions, the pain I caused, not just to Michael and Leo, but to myself, became painfully clear. I was no innocent victim in this tale. I was a willing participant in a game I never fully understood. In the thick of night, my heart thundered a warning I couldn't ignore. A plan, once a glimmer of hope, now teetered on the brink of disaster. I should have known better than to think I could outmaneuver Michael, but desperation breeds foolishness. The revelation hit me like a freight train. My defiance hadn't just burnt bridges, it had ignited a wildfire that consumed everything in its path, including an innocent soul I never meant to drag into this mess. The news came at dawn, wrapped in a somber tone that left no room for doubt. My actions, a domino chain of misguided decisions, had indirectly led to a tragedy that shattered an innocent life. The weight of this realization pinned me to the ground, a burden too heavy to bear. Michael's voice, cold and unyielding, detailed the fallout, ensuring I understood the extent of my culpability. His words, meant to chastise, only fueled my resolve. Redemption was a far cry, but I owed it to the shadows of my mistakes to try. Plans began to unravel as if fate itself mocked my attempts at penance. Each move, calculated to sever the ties that bound me to this orchestrated chaos, only entangled me further. Michael, a puppeteer delighting in my struggles, watched with a hawk's eye, ready to snip any thread of escape I might find. The escape attempt was a flash of recklessness, a momentary lapse in judgment that saw me dashing towards freedom, only to crash against the cold, unyielding reality of Michael's security. Captured and dragged back to my golden cage, the illusion of control shattered, leaving behind the bitter taste of defeat. Punishment followed, not with the lash or lock, but with the psychological chains that tightened around my spirit. Michael's methods were meticulous, designed not to break the body, but to ensnare the mind. Isolation became my constant companion, whispering tales of despair and hopelessness. Yet, from the depths of desolation, an unlikely ally emerged. Jake, The quiet gardener whose presence I'd barely acknowledged extended a hand. His motives, shrouded in mystery, promised one last shot at defiance. Skepticism gnawed at me, but the flicker of hope was too tempting to ignore. Together, we hatched a plan, our combined resolve fueling a strategy that might just topple the king from his throne. The climactic showdown loomed, a crescendo of all or nothing that would either grant me freedom or consign me to eternal captivity. The day of reckoning arrived with a storm on its heels, nature itself bracing for the fallout. Michael, ever the strategist, had anticipated our move. The showdown, instead of a battle of wits and wills, became a massacre of my last vestiges of hope. Secrets spilled like blood, staining the ground with the truth of intentions laid bare. In the end, the catastrophic failure was not just the plan but the very foundation of my existence. The loss was not just of freedom but of self. Michael's victory was absolute, leaving me a shell of the woman who once thought she could outplay the master. The silence that followed was deafening, a testament to the void that now defined my life. Caught in the web of my own making, I understood the true cost of my actions. Redemption was a myth, a tale for those whose mistakes hadn't yet cost them everything. As I stood amidst the ruins of my life, the lesson was clear. In the game of deceit and betrayal, the only winning move was not to play. The air feels thick, almost suffocating, as I sit in the silent aftermath of my shattered world. There's a deafening quiet that wraps around me, a stark reminder of the isolation I've earned through a series of choices I can hardly believe were my own. The once warm and inviting home Michael and I shared now feels like a cold, unforgiving prison. The fallout from my actions, my betrayals, and my misplaced trust in what I thought was love with Leo has left me vilified, a pariah in my own story. It's a bitter pill, realizing that those few who stood by me through thick and thin have finally turned their backs. Disillusioned, they've walked away, unable to watch me spiral further. Sarah, once my confidant, could only offer a pained look of disappointment before she too disappeared from my life. Their departures are silent indictments of my choices, each one a nail in the coffin of my former life. The final plot point in this twisted saga comes crashing down with the weight of inevitability. Michael, ever the strategist, reveals his masterstroke, a loss so profound and personal it feels like being gutted. The details are almost mundane, a financial ruin meticulously orchestrated to leave me with nothing. Not just penniless but devoid of hope, of dignity. It's his revenge, a punishment far more cruel and calculated than any fleeting moment of physical pain could ever be. Paranoia becomes my constant companion, whispering lies and truths in equal measure. I see Michael's hand in every shadow, every unexpected sound. He's everywhere and nowhere, a ghost haunting the edges of my fractured psyche. This descent into madness is perhaps the cruelest part of his revenge, leaving me to question what's real and what's a figment of my increasingly unreliable perception. But then, when I think there's nothing left to lose, I discover a betrayal that cuts deeper than any before. Hidden amidst the financial documents Michael left for me to find is evidence of an affair, not mine, but his. A calculated, cold relationship, not born of passion but of strategy, a way to ensure I was truly alone, truly broken. It's the final twist of the knife, a betrayal designed not just to punish, but to obliterate any remaining shred of self-worth I had clung to. As I sit amidst the ruins of my life, I can't help but reflect on the choices that brought me here. There's no redemption arc waiting in the wings, no last-minute salvation. There's just me, Anna, the woman who gambled everything on a chance for passion and ended up losing far more than she ever imagined possible. The lesson is as harsh as it is clear. Actions have consequences, and some choices, once made, can never be undone. The day dawned bleak, the sky a mirror to my turmoil. There I was, cornered in the life I thought I wanted, realizing it was a facade crafted by my own betrayals and Michael's cold vengeance. The air in the house was thick, charged with a silent, impending doom. I could feel the walls closing in, each photograph, each memento mocking my downfall. My confrontation with reality was abrupt, like being doused with ice water. Michael, with his calculated moves, had left me marooned on an island of despair. The isolation was complete, a prison without bars, crafted meticulously through my own choices. In a last-ditch effort to reclaim some semblance of control, I plotted a final stand against Michael. It was a plan born of desperation, a flicker of rebellion in the overwhelming darkness. I reached out to the few allies I thought I had left, only to find doors closing one after the other. Betrayal, it seemed, was a cloak I could not shed. The day of reckoning arrived with an eerie quiet. My heart raced as I initiated my plan, a complex scheme to expose Michael, to shake off the chains he'd wound so tightly around me. But as the hours ticked by, it became clear that I was playing into his hands once again. My every move had been anticipated, my supposed allies nothing but pawns in Michael's game. The defeat was not just crushing, it obliterated the last vestiges of hope I harbored. Michael's victory was absolute. He didn't just defeat me, he annihilated every trace of the person I once was. Standing before him, I saw not a flicker of triumph in his eyes, but a cold satisfaction. His revenge was complete, leaving me a shell of my former self. In the aftermath, I found myself spiraling into an acceptance as grim as the life I now faced. There was no denying it anymore. My choices, my betrayals, had led me here. The final revelation of Michael's manipulation, the depth of his control, was a blow. Not because it was surprising, but because it underscored just how far I'd fallen. Isolated completely, I became a prisoner in a gilded cage of my own making. The house, once a home, now felt like a mausoleum, each room echoing with the ghosts of my past decisions. The realization that revenge, both sought and enacted, had been the architect of my ruin was a silent reflection that permeated the air, a lesson learned too late. The story culminates not with a bang but a whimper. The dramatic, non-positive conclusion sees me facing a future devoid of hope, redemption, or escape. A cautionary tale, indeed, of betrayal, regret, and the destructive nature of revenge. My last thoughts, as I resigned myself to this fate, were not of sorrow or even anger but of a profound emptiness. The cost of my actions, the price of Michael's victory, was the total annihilation of the life I once knew. A stark reminder that some choices, once made, can— Hello everyone. My name's Zoe. I'm sure you have come here for some juicy mother-in-law stories, and I sort of have one for you. I'll give you a warning that my story does have a tragic side as well. But don't worry, justice was served and my evil mother-in-law Nessa did get her karma in the end. To start my story, I must mention that I met my husband Logan in college. We were both studying abroad and I had no idea how horrible his mom truly was. From what I had heard from Logan, I only had admiration for the woman. Nessa was a single mom to Logan since his dad died when he was a teenager. It was a rather tragic situation. While coming home from a dad-son trip, their car crashed and only Logan survived it. His father was alive for a very short while and passed away 2 days after the incident. Logan had moderate physical wounds, but his mental trauma was something that just wouldn't go away. Logan had always talked about how he was grateful to have his mom step in and take care of him. Nessa was a fighter and raised a fine young man. So I only had positive thoughts about Nessa until I actually met her. This is how our first meeting went. Nessa, I'm so happy to meet you. I was actually looking forward to getting to know you because of the stories Logan told me. You truly are a remarkable woman. That I am, Zoe. I'm glad you could see that early on. I'm not someone to be messed with. I did have to suffer a lot raising Logan alone. Yes, you have truly raised a fine young man. Logan has landed such a great job and is so good at taking care of others. He loves you a lot, you know? He has achieved so much to make you happy. I hope you're proud of him. Why should I be proud of him? Logan has only done the bare minimum. I deserve that after losing my husband due to his stupidity. I swear Logan had gone rock beside me. I was seriously taken aback by Nessa's words as well. I had no idea how to react to that. What Nessa said was nothing short of mean and horrible. I said, "What do you mean, Nessa? It's very unfortunate that your husband died in an accident, but what does Logan have to do with it?" "Oh, well, he had everything to do with it. If Logan had not insisted on leaving me alone and going on a dad-son trip, my husband would still be alive. It is because of him that I lost my dear husband. Am I right, Logan? Yes, you're right, Mom. I really shouldn't have insisted on that trip. I'm sorry, Mom. Did you see that, Zoe? Even Logan accepts his mistake. That is one of the reasons why he is so close to me. I am his responsibility now. Let me warn you, Zoe, Logan will always put me before you. He will always remember his duty to me. Guys, the dinner was an eye-opener for me. I sat there in shock while Logan kept his head down and just took the blame for his father's death. Nessa had a gala time blaming him and reminding him how she should always be his priority. I stayed with Nessa for 2 days, and what I heard broke my heart. Nessa actively blamed Logan and has been doing it his entire life. That way she kept him under her thumb and made him fund her life. It was just bizarre, and I felt bad for Logan. One night I sat him down and tried to make him understand how wrong Nessa was. I said, Logan, you shouldn't listen to your mother. She's just trying to control you by shifting the blame for the accident on you. This is not okay. Zoe, Mom's right. In a way, I am responsible for Dad's passing. I've already accepted it. You don't have to feel sorry for me. Logan, you are crazy. You need to seriously get some distance from your mom and analyze her ways. She's emotionally manipulating you and taking advantage of you. Look, Zoe, even if you're right, what can I do? I need to take care of her. She's the only one I have left. Before my dad died, I had promised him that I would do everything to help my mom. I can't back down on that promise. It's true that I took Dad away from her. I want to make up for that mistake. It's my duty. I tried my best to make Logan understand what a snake his mom was, but he would never listen to me. Nessa made good use of his fresh trauma and manipulated him into thinking that he owed Nessa everything in his life. Nessa was taking full advantage of that. My good opinion about her was already in shambles, and I started to hate her. Nessa wasn't stupid. She knew that I would try to make Logan see the truth about her. So she constantly created trouble between me and Logan. Despite everything, I married Logan because he was an amazing man. I knew that his love for me was true. I also knew that I couldn't just walk away from him knowing how vulnerable he was. We got married, and soon Logan purchased an expensive mansion for us. Guess who showed up right after we moved in? Yes, it was Nessa. One day she just showed up with her stuff and declared that she would stay with us. Why, you may ask? Of course, because she deserves it for losing her husband due to Logan's fault. I swear even typing this out makes me want to knock her out. You could only imagine my anger when she sat in front of me and berated Logan for not inviting her sooner. Logan, of course, gave in and allowed her to stay. He was already shouldering her expenses and paying her rent, so it was nothing new for her. But it turned out to be a nightmare for me. Nessa made my life a living hell. She started to manipulate Logan into thinking that I was a gold digger who didn't want him to take care of her. Yes, I didn't want Logan to shoulder all of Nessa's expenses because she was a toxic manipulator and abuser. I don't know why she thought I was a gold digger because I contributed to the household and had a job, albeit not as good as Logan. Anyway, after a year of fights and screaming matches, I have had enough and left the house. I moved into a friend's empty apartment and gave Logan an ultimatum. I said, listen to me, Logan. I can't live with your mom like this. We have been taking all her responsibilities, and she is still running around abusing us. Hell, she had moved on to trying to break us up. I can't take this anymore. You refuse to punish her or do anything about this situation. Zoe, what can I do? You know I can't speak against my mom. I'm the reason she's alone and without a partner. I don't have the place to tell her off. I'm so sorry, Zoe. I want to support you, but I don't know how. Listen to me, Logan. You have to see past your mom's manipulating tactics and take a stand for us. This can't continue. I won't go back to that house while she's there. If you think you can't do anything, then it's best we get a divorce. I was honestly tired of Nessa and at the end of my wit, so it was natural for me to consider divorce. I didn't want to be with someone who wouldn't stand up for me, but Logan wasn't willing to let me go. He immediately panicked and started to beg. He said, Zoe, I can't evict my mom from the house. I promised my father that I'd take care of her. I won't be able to make her homeless or kick her out, but I will buy a new house, Zoe. I'll sell whatever I own and buy a house for you. No, I don't think that would be a good idea. As much as I want to get away from your mother, I also don't want to financially cripple you. Fine then, you can. I'll pay the down payment and take a mortgage. I promise I'll get you away from my mother. If I leave her the house, she will at least create less problems in our life. I'll slowly cut her off, Zoe. I promise you that I will make sure you never face this situation again. Logan literally begged me to give him a chance. I won't lie to you guys, but I did feel hesitant to accept his request. I did love him a lot, but I was doubtful that his mom would leave us alone. However, after a lot of careful consideration, I decided to give him a chance. But things would be different for us. It was hard to start a new life with Logan. Nessa threw a fit when he talked about moving out. Thankfully, Logan pacified her by saying the house would be hers, and she wouldn't have to leave her favorite place. Also, Logan promised to send her an allowance every month so that she wouldn't have to fend for herself. While this was going on, I continued to stay apart from my husband. I wanted to see his resolve and only waited till he had purchased a house and started the mortgage payments. He was the one who set everything up, so I knew he was serious. 2 months after the house purchase, I moved back in with Logan. Nessa threw a fit and tried to cause problems. She stormed into our new house and said, "Why the hell is that witch back with you, Logan? I thought we had gotten rid of her for good. You don't need a gold digger in your life like that. Look at this, Logan. She even made you buy a new house." Mom, you have no right to say what I do with my own marriage. You wanted Zoe gone, but I didn't. We have decided to mend our relationship and marriage. You should be happy for us. Why the hell would I be happy, Logan? First, Zoe tried to kick me out of your house, and now she made you buy her a new house. She's just proving me right in thinking that she is a gold digger. Why would you still want that in your life? Mom, I love Zoe. Buying a new place was solely my decision. Zoe had nothing to do with it. You are not a saint either, Mom. You did create a host of problems for Zoe too. So far, I have never stood up against you, but you are taking things too far. Don't make me regret supporting you, Mom. My dear mother-in-law turned pale when Logan talked to her like that. She had never expected Logan to stand up for me like that. I know that to most people it is nothing remarkable, but to me it was. I knew how much strength it took Logan to stand up to his mom. Nessa, of course, cried and lamented about how he was treating her very cruelly. It was a complete drama, and I wisely kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to interfere and somehow give Nessa the chance to make me the bad guy again. Plus, I didn't even have to say anything. Logan continued to covertly threaten Nessa about cutting off her monthly allowance if she continued to cause problems. That shut her up eventually, but Nessa's words also gave me some food for thought. When Nessa was gone, Logan started to apologize to me again for his mom's words. He was worried that I would bolt after this small incident. He was really caught between a rock and a hard place. It honestly made me feel very sad for him. It was then that I decided that we needed some more changes. I said, "Logan, I really appreciate how you stood up for me today. I know it's not enough and a little late, but I appreciate it anyway. I will do that again if Mom tries to create problems, Zoe. Please don't leave me again. I swear I will make things right." Logan, I'm not leaving for now, but we would need a little more change after today's incident. It has got me thinking about certain stuff and what more needs to be done. Logan immediately jumped to hear my suggestions. It warmed my heart to know that he was willing to do what it takes to make us happy. That's how I got the confidence to proceed with my suggestions. I said, "First of all, I think we need to see a therapist. We need both individual therapy and couples therapy. It will help us fix our relationship better and make you unlearn that shit that Nessa has been teaching you since your childhood." Absolutely, Zoe. I've been thinking about the same thing. It's difficult for me to stand up to my mom due to my childhood. Mom really made sure I always felt guilty about standing up to her. Only therapy can help me in this regard. What else do you have in mind? I would like to start paying the mortgage on this house. What? No, no, no. I decided to buy a new house. I need to prove to you that I am committed to us, Zoe. You already proved to me that you are committed to making this marriage work. But I need the world to know that I am not a gold digger. For that, I need to have an equal contribution to this house. You already made the down payment, so I will take over the mortgage payment. Eventually, we will put both our names on this house. Logan did protest a lot when I suggested this. He was adamant that he would pay for the whole house. Hell, he even suggested I put my name on the deed without paying anything. But I strongly disagreed with that. I knew that if I had taken up his offer, his mother would be proven right. She would have convinced everyone that I am after Logan's money, which I am definitely not. The best course of action was for me to pay the mortgage and eventually have my name added to the house. After a lot of discussion, I convinced Logan to do what I had planned. From the next month onward, I started the mortgage payments on the house. 2 years passed and things were great between me and Logan. In our new house, we were able to have a happy married life away from Nessa. She did try to meddle and cause problems, but Logan put her back in her place every time. Therapy helped a lot, and Logan was able to let go of the guilt that his mother had instilled in him. The two of us were very happy, and Nessa was a distant problem from our past. But everything came crashing down when Logan was diagnosed with a rare disease. The diagnosis came late, and there was very little we could do to help him. He was given 4 months to live. It is difficult for me to describe what the diagnosis did to me. It is even more difficult to explain my mental condition when he passed away just 3 months into the diagnosis. What I can say is that I was able to make the most of what little time I had left with Logan. Thankfully, Nessa didn't interfere much, or rather Logan didn't allow her to. But when he was gone, Nessa didn't stop the venom spilling out. Just 2 days after Logan's death, she strolled into my house like she owned it. I was angry and said, "What the hell are you doing here, Nessa? I told you to stay away. Why would I listen to you, Zoe? This house will soon be mine anyway. I've just come to see it before I take full ownership of the place." "You are freaking crazy, Nessa. This house is mine. There is no way in hell that I would let you take it from me." "Oh, darling, this house was Logan's till he died. I know that you guys never ended up adding your name to the deed. Before he died, Logan had promised me that I would receive this house in his will." Nessa's words made me panic instantly. She was right about the house. As the years passed, we didn't have the chance to put my name on the deed. It was actually still completely in Logan's name. Now Nessa was saying that Logan had promised her the house. I had a hard time believing that Logan had betrayed me so cruelly, but until the will was read, there was no way to tell. On the day of Logan's funeral, things were tense between me and Nessa. We were both pretty sad, although Nessa made a big show of crying every time someone came near her. How did I know? Well, she actually smirked at me when people left me to comfort her. It was starting to get on my nerves, especially because I really wanted to grieve my late husband in peace. I didn't want to make that day about me, so I kept my mouth shut and avoided any confrontations. The real drama started when me and Nessa were called by Logan's lawyer to read the will. When the will was finally read, I discovered to my great horror that Logan had indeed named Nessa as the new owner of the new house. I was honestly in shock while Nessa laughed in my face and kept saying how Logan would always put her above me. The lawyer sort of gave her the stink eye to keep her quiet while he read the next part of the will. While I couldn't understand why Logan would give Nessa a house that I was paying for, the lawyer read the rest of Logan's will. Nessa didn't pay attention to it because she was busy laughing at me, but I knew what my dear husband had done when the entire will was read. I smiled a little at Nessa when the lawyer said, "So, as you can see, the smaller house that was purchased recently will go to Mrs. Nessa here." Oh God, my son does love me a lot, doesn't he? He left me 2 freaking houses while his gold digger wife didn't get anything. I'm not sure you understand the will correctly, Mom. Maybe instead of laughing at your daughter-in-law, you should have paid more attention to the last part of the will. What? What are you talking about? Well, let me put these simple words for you, Mom. The bigger house that you're living in right now is going to Zoe, and the smaller house with an active mortgage is going to you. This means you will have to empty your existing place and take on the mortgage at the smaller house. Nessa's face completely changed when she realized what Logan had done. Her precious son hadn't left her everything in his will. Instead, he had left her a small house with an outstanding mortgage that she would have to shoulder. I, his wife, ended up inheriting the bigger house from which Nessa had forcefully made me move. It was the last bit of revenge that my dear husband took on my behalf. Nessa was in complete shock. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She said, "Excuse me? What are you even talking about? That can't be true. My son would never do that to me. You are lying. This is some sort of a scheme against me. You are accusing me of being unprofessional, Mom? That is a serious allegation that I won't entertain. I will provide you with a copy of the will so that you can cross-check the facts." "Oh, hell yes. I am going to take a copy and see for myself." The lawyer looked pretty ticked off as he handed us both the will. True to his words, the will stated what the lawyer had already told us. My husband hadn't betrayed me. He actually screwed Nessa over as a last act of revenge. I knew he did it for both me and him. He was finally able to teach Nessa a lesson. Seeing Nessa's face, I could tell that she wasn't pleased. She started to cry and yell at both me and the lawyer. It was just bizarre the way she was behaving. Even the lawyer looked like he was at the end of his wits. Nessa kept saying, "This is bullshit. This can't happen. Someone has sabotaged this will. This will is 100% genuine, Mom. Mr. Logan had himself drawn it up a month before he died. And this will is rock solid. I will contest this will. I won't let Zoe take what's rightfully mine."
I vil sue you, Zoe.
Go right ahead, Nessa. Your son has made sure that the will is ironclad. You can't do anything about it. If you want a contest, you will have to use your own money. By the way, I hope you realize your allowance will stop from next month. Nessa looked at me in panic when I said that. She hadn't thought about that either. She was so used to having Logan take care of her that she didn't even plan what would happen when he wasn't around. I guess she had really thought that Logan would leave her everything in his will. So my little warning sparked some doubts in her. She said, "No, no, no. That can't be possible. I'm entitled to an allowance, right?" "I didn't think so, ma'am. Since there is no clause about an allowance, it means you are not entitled to any. Besides, the will clearly says that all monetary possessions of my late client will go to his wife. So any allowance you get will depend on your daughter-in-law. If you think I will give you any money, you need to think again, Nessa. That will never happen. So don't even bother asking me." "No, no, this can't be happening." Nessa sank to the floor crying like a banshee. The lawyer and I ignored her to carry on our own conversation. She remained on the floor crying and cursing me out while I casually strolled out of the funeral home after I was done. Nessa had her karma served to her, and it was now time to face the music. As the days passed, Nessa desperately tried to go against the will. She spent the last bits of her money trying to find a lawyer who would contest the will. Well, to no one's surprise, everyone refused. While she was busy doing this, I had served her an eviction notice. The house she lived in was mine now anyway. As the month was up, she tried to beg me to let her stay there. She even tried to use her crocodile tears to make me give her money. I closed the door on her face, of course. I was living with a friend and moved into the big house where Nessa was forced to move out. She moved into the small house and was stuck paying the mortgage. Since she had no money of her own and no job, she had to ultimately sell the house. The sale needed to be quick, so Nessa lost out on a lot of money. Not to mention the fact that the house wasn't even paid off completely. All in all, she only got enough money to support her for a year. I was there in my new house watching her every move. I saw her destruction with my own eyes. My stupid mother-in-law didn't even last a year with that money. Her terrible financial decisions made her homeless and penniless well within 8 months. Nessa did come back to beg me for help again. She tried to emotionally manipulate me by saying that her son would have wanted me to help her. I laughed in her face and told her son already made his intentions clear. She didn't like that one bit. This time she couldn't even form a retort because she was down on her luck. Karma is truly an amazing thing. I saw her last week when I was out grocery shopping. She works at the cash counter now. She pretended not to know me. It was well and good with me. I didn't even feel sorry for her. I heard she's renting a place with 5 people now. All I can say is that she deserves it. As for me, I'm content being single in a big house and with the beautiful